Think about the last time you sat in total silence for 10 minutes with absolutely nothing to do. No phone, no music, no scrolling, just you and your thoughts. For most of us, that sounds less like a peaceful break and more like a modern form of psychological torture. We've become a generation that is terrified of being bored, yet we are constantly exhausted. We are overstimulated, overconnected, and yet, somehow, we feel more stagnant than ever. You sit down to work on that big project, that dream you've been talking about for years, and within 30 seconds, your hand is instinctively reaching for your phone. You don't even know why you're doing it. It's like a reflex, a ghost in the machine of your own mind pulling the strings. You tell yourself you'll just check one notification, and 45 minutes later, you're deep in a rabbit hole of short-form videos, feeling a strange mix of numbness and guilt. Welcome to Audiobook Mode. Today, we are going to break that cycle. We are diving deep into a transformative guide that has become a manual for the modern age. Dopamine Detox by Thibaut Meurisse. Meurisse is a prolific author known for his ability to take complex psychological concepts and turn them into actionable, life-changing strategies. This book isn't just about productivity. It's about reclaiming your sovereignty. It's about understanding the invisible chemical that governs your every move and learning how to take the wheel back. By the time we reach the end of this journey, you won't just understand why you feel so distracted. You will have a blueprint to reset your brain and finally start doing the hard things that actually matter. Most people think of dopamine as the pleasure chemical. We've been told that when we eat a piece of chocolate or get a like on a photo, our brain releases dopamine to make us feel good. But here's where things get interesting. That is actually a massive misunderstanding of how your brain works. Thibaut Meurisse points out that dopamine isn't about the pleasure of the reward. It's about the anticipation of it. It's the craving chemical. It's the internal engine that says, go get that thing. It might be good. This is why you can spend hours scrolling through a feed and not actually feel happy. You aren't enjoying the content. You are simply addicted to the possibility that the next post might be the one that gives you a hit. Your brain is stuck in a loop of seeking, never finding, and never resting. Imagine your brain is like a glass of water. In its natural state, it's clear and calm. But every time you check a notification, play a video game, or eat highly processed sugar, it's like dropping a hit of neon dye into that water. Do it once or twice, and the water stays relatively clear. But in our modern world, we are dropping dye into the glass every 5 minutes. From the moment we wake up and check our emails to the moment we fall asleep watching Netflix, we are flooding our systems. Eventually, the water becomes so dark and murky that you can't see through it anymore. This is what Meurisse calls high dopamine stimulation, and it's the reason why the clear things, like reading a book, going for a walk, or working on your business, suddenly feel incredibly dull and difficult. But this is only part of the story. The real danger isn't just that we like stimulation, it's that our baseline for what feels normal is constantly shifting. Most people completely overlook this, but your brain is an adaptation machine. If you spend your whole day in a high-stimulation environment, your brain decides that this high level of dopamine is the new zero. Anything less than that feels like a deficit. It feels like pain. This is why when you try to sit down and focus on a boring task, like writing a report or studying, your brain literally screams at you to find something more exciting. It's not that you lack willpower, it's that your brain's thermostat is set way too high. What happens next is even more powerful because it explains why so many of us feel like we're stuck in a permanent state of waiting to start our lives. We feel like we need to be in the mood or motivated to do the hard work. But as Meurisse explains, motivation is a fickle friend when your dopamine levels are fried. You are essentially trying to run a marathon while your legs are tied together by invisible threads of digital distraction. We've created a world where the easiest things to do are the least rewarding in the long run, and the most rewarding things are the hardest to start. Think about the difference between a professional athlete and a casual observer. The observer wants the hit of the win without the work. The athlete has learned to manage their internal environment so that the work itself becomes the path. This is the core of the dopamine detox philosophy. It's not about living a life of monk-like deprivation where you never enjoy anything again. It's about a strategic reset. It's about clearing the murky water so you can see the bottom of the glass again. Now, you might be thinking, okay, so I'll just use more self-discipline. But this is where most people fail. They try to fight a chemical war with a cardboard shield. You cannot will your way out of a dopamine addiction if your environment stays the same. If you are trying to diet while sitting in the middle of a candy store, you are going to lose. Meurisse argues that the first step to a successful detox is acknowledging that your environment is currently designed to exploit you. Every app on your phone has been engineered by thousands of the smartest people in the world specifically to keep you looking at it. You aren't weak for being distracted. You are simply outgunned. And this changes everything. If you stop seeing your lack of focus as a character flaw and start seeing it as a biological response to an artificial environment, you can stop the shame cycle. Shame is a high-stress emotion that actually makes you crave more dopamine to escape the bad feeling. It's a trap. Instead, we need a tactical withdrawal. We need to step back and ask, what would my life look like if I wasn't being constantly nudged by algorithms? Imagine if you could sit down and work for 2 hours without a single urge to check your phone. Imagine if the hard things started to feel engaging, even fun, because your brain was no longer being numbed by constant noise. This isn't a fantasy. It's what happens when you lower your dopamine baseline. When you remove the neon dye, the clear water starts to look interesting again. So how do we actually do this? Meurisse outlines several levels of a detox, but the most famous is the 24-hour total reset. This is the nuclear option, and it's exactly what it sounds like. For 24 hours, you remove all sources of high dopamine stimulation. No internet, no phone, no TV, no music, no junk food, and even, for the bravest, no reading. You are left with a notebook, a pen, some simple food, and your own mind. Most people hear that and their first reaction is genuine fear. What will I do with myself? I'll be so bored. But that's exactly the point. Boredom is the space where creativity is born. Boredom is the reset button for your brain's thermostat. When you are bored, your brain starts to look for ways to be productive just to escape the stillness. Suddenly, that project you've been procrastinating on for months starts to look like the most exciting thing in the world. You've successfully lowered the bar for what qualifies as stimulating. But here's where things get interesting. A detox isn't just a one-time event. It's a lens through which you view your entire day. Thibaut Meurisse emphasizes that the goal is to build a sustainable relationship with dopamine. You don't have to throw your smartphone into the ocean. You just have to stop letting it be the boss of you. Consider the morning routine trap. Most of us reach for our phones within seconds of opening our eyes. We flood our brains with emails, news, and social media before we've even had a glass of water. We are setting our dopamine thermostat to high before the day has even begun. No wonder we struggle to focus an hour later. Meurisse suggests a much more powerful approach. Protect your mornings. Keep your brain in that low dopamine state for as long as possible. Do your hardest, most important work first, while your mind is still clear and the water hasn't been muddied by the world's noise. But let's go deeper. Why is this so hard for us? Why do we feel such a visceral pull toward the things that drain us? It's because we are wired for survival in a world that no longer exists. In the wild, if you found a source of sugar or a new piece of information about a predator, that dopamine hit saved your life. It told you, pay attention, this is important. But today, we have an infinite supply of sugar and information, and our ancient brains don't have an off switch. We are effectively overeating information and stimulation until we are mentally obese and unable to move toward our real goals. This leads us to a crucial insight that many people miss. Productivity is not about doing more. It's about doing less of the things that don't matter so you have the energy to do the things that do. It's about elimination rather than addition. We keep looking for the next productivity hack or the next app that will solve our problems. But the answer is usually to delete the apps we already have. Think about this. If you had a car and you kept the engine revving at redline 24/7, eventually it would break. Our brains are currently redlining. A dopamine detox is like finally letting the engine idle. It feels weird at first, maybe even uncomfortable, but it's the only way to ensure the machine keeps running for the long haul. As we move through this process, we start to realize that the fear of missing out, FOMO, is a primary driver of our dopamine addiction. We're afraid that if we turn off the noise, we'll miss something important. But Meurisse challenges us to ask, what are you missing by staying plugged in? You are missing your own life. You are missing the ability to think deeply. You are missing the satisfaction of completing a difficult task. You are missing the peace that comes with being fully present. The cost of staying in the loop is often the very dreams you are trying to achieve. Most people fail because they think a detox is about suffering. They think they are giving something up, but you aren't giving up pleasure. You are giving up the illusion of pleasure in exchange for real satisfaction. There is a profound difference between the cheap dopamine of a video game and the expensive dopamine of finishing a workout or writing a chapter of a book. The cheap stuff leaves you feeling empty. The expensive stuff leaves you feeling empowered. What happens next is even more powerful. The compound effect of focus. When you start managing your dopamine, you don't just get a little bit better at working. You get exponentially better because you aren't fighting yourself anymore. Your deep work sessions become longer and more intense. You start to enter flow state, that magical place where time disappears and your work feels effortless. You can't reach flow if your brain is constantly scanning for the next notification. Flow requires a low dopamine environment where the task at hand is the only source of stimulation. Imagine if you could reclaim just 2 hours of your day from low-value stimulation. Over a year, that's over 700 hours. That's enough time to learn a new language, start a side business, or read 50 books. The tragedy of the dopamine-fried brain is not that it's lazy, but that it is wasting its incredible potential on things that will be forgotten by tomorrow morning. Thibaut Meurisse is very clear that the detox is just the beginning. The real work is in the re-entry. How do you live in a high dopamine world without getting sucked back into the vortex? This is where the concept of mindful consumption comes in. It's about setting boundaries. It's about deciding when and how you will use technology rather than letting it use you. Maybe it's turning off all non-human notifications. Maybe it's having a digital sunset where all screens go off at 9 p.m. Maybe it's committing to a 1-day-a-week digital fast. These aren't restrictions. They are guardrails that protect your mental freedom. But this is only part of the story. To truly sustain a life of focus, we have to address the underlying reasons why we seek out constant stimulation. Often, it's a form of emotional regulation. We scroll because we're stressed, or lonely, or bored with our current reality. The dopamine hit is a temporary bandage on a deeper wound. Meurisse encourages us to look at those feelings directly. If you're bored, maybe your life needs more meaningful challenges. If you're stressed, maybe you need better coping mechanisms than doom scrolling. By clearing the noise, the detox forces you to face your life as it actually is. And while that can be uncomfortable, it is the only starting point for genuine change. Think about the most successful people you know. They often have a certain stillness about them. They aren't constantly twitching for their phones. They are comfortable in their own skin. This is because they have mastered their internal environment. They have protected their ability to think, to reflect, and to act with intention. They understand that their attention is their most valuable asset, and they refuse to sell it for a few likes. And this is where most people fail. They treat their attention as if it's infinite. They think they can spend it all day on trivialities and still have enough left over for the things that matter. But attention is a finite resource. It's like a battery that drains every time you have to process a new piece of information. By the time evening rolls around, your attention battery is at 5%, and you wonder why you can't find the energy to work on your passion project. You aren't tired because you work too hard. You're tired because you process too much junk. So, let's talk about the long-term detox. This isn't a 24-hour fast. It's a lifestyle shift. It involves identifying your biggest dopamine leaks. For some, it's YouTube. For others, it's news sites, or online shopping, or even just checking stats and analytics. Meurisse suggests picking your top 3 inches, distractions, and eliminating them entirely for 30 days. This is long enough for your brain to actually rewire itself, a process called neuroplasticity. After 30 days, the pull of those distractions will be significantly weaker. You'll find that you don't even miss them as much as you thought you would. What happens next is even more powerful. As you reclaim your attention, you start to discover what Thibaut Meurisse calls the joy of the process. Most of our dopamine-fueled activities are outcome-oriented. We want the win, the info, the laugh. But the most fulfilling parts of life are process-oriented. It's the joy of building something, the peace of a long walk, the depth of a real conversation. When your dopamine levels are balanced, the doing becomes enough. You don't need a reward at the end because the act itself is rewarding. This is the ultimate goal of the detox, to move from a life of seeking to a life of being. But this is only part of the story. As you continue on this path, you will face the resistance. This is the part of your brain that wants to go back to the old ways. It will tell you that you're missing out, that you're being too intense, or that one little scroll won't hurt. This is the moment of truth. Every time you say no to a cheap dopamine hit, you are strengthening your focus muscle. Every time you choose the hard thing over the easy thing, you are rewriting your identity. You are becoming someone who is in control of their destiny. Imagine a year from now. You have mastered the principles in dopamine detox. You wake up with a clear mind. You spend your first few hours on your most important goals. You use technology as a tool, not a crutch. You are more productive, yes, but you are also more peaceful. You have silence in your life again, and you're no longer afraid of it. You've moved from being a consumer to being a creator. That version of you is waiting, but they can only exist if you are willing to step out of the dopamine loop today. As we reach the final 25% of our journey today, I want to share the most powerful and transformative insight from Meurisse's work. It's something that ties everything we've discussed together into a single, undeniable truth. The greatest obstacle to your success isn't your lack of talent, your lack of resources, or your lack of time. It is your unwillingness to be bored. In our society, boredom is treated like a disease. We have entire industries dedicated to curing it. But boredom is actually a vital biological signal. It is your brain telling you that your current environment is not providing enough meaningful growth. When we fix boredom with a smartphone, we are essentially turning off a smoke alarm while the house is on fire. We are ignoring the signal that we need to grow, to learn, or to change. By embracing a dopamine detox, you are making peace with boredom. You are saying, I would rather feel the discomfort of stillness than the numbness of constant distraction. And in that stillness, you will find your voice. You will find your drive. You will find the version of yourself that has been buried under layers of digital noise. This is the payoff for staying till the end, the realization that the hard things aren't actually that hard. They only feel hard because we are constantly comparing them to the ultra-easy hits of dopamine we get from our screens. When you take away the ultra-easy options, your brain naturally gravitates toward the meaningful ones. Thibaut Meurisse has given us a gift with this book. He hasn't just told us to work harder. He's shown us how to create an internal environment where hard work becomes the natural choice. He's reminded us that we are biological creatures in a digital world, and that we have to be intentional about how we manage our chemistry. Think about this. Your life is the sum of what you paid attention to. At the end of your days, will you be glad you saw every viral video and read every controversial tweet? Or will you be glad you built something, loved someone, and mastered yourself? The choice seems obvious when we say it out loud, yet we make the wrong choice thousands of times a day because we are under the spell of dopamine. The detox is the breaking of that spell. It is the moment you wake up and realize you've been dreaming someone else's dream. The dream of the attention economy architects who want your time and your energy for their own profit. By taking back your dopamine, you are taking back your life. As we conclude this exploration of Dopamine Detox by Thibaut Meurisse, I want to leave you with a challenge. Don't just let this be another piece of educational content that gives you a temporary hit of knowledge dopamine before you move on to the next video. Let this be the start of a real change. Start small if you have to. Commit to a phone-free first hour tomorrow morning. Or, if you're feeling bold, plan your first 24-hour total detox for this coming weekend. Grab a notebook and a pen and see what happens when you let the neon dye settle. See what thoughts come to the surface when you stop drowning them out. You have an incredible capacity for focus, for creativity, and for impact. But that capacity is currently being held hostage by a chemical loop that doesn't care about your future. It's time to pay the ransom. It's time to detox. If this resonated with you, if you feel like it's time to you reclaim your brain, then I invite you to join our community. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, not so you can get another hit of dopamine, but so you can stay connected to the ideas that actually help you grow. We are here to help you navigate the noise and find the signal. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. What is the one distraction that you know is holding you back the most? And what are you going to do about it this week? Sometimes, just saying it out loud or typing it out is the first step toward breaking the power it has over you. Thank you for staying until the end. Thank you for choosing to listen to something that challenges you rather than just entertains you. Remember, the world wants your attention, but your future needs your focus. Choose wisely. Until next time, stay focused, stay intentional, and keep moving toward the life you were meant to live. Respect to Meurisse for providing the map. Now, it's your turn to walk the path.